So my final opinion on this game, is Metaphor ReFantazio worth it? Well, how's it going? Welcome back to another great video with the majestic host, the Savior, and today we are in for a massive treat, honestly, especially for you Persona fans out there. And I have some close friends who are massive Persona fans, so you know, this is gonna be a good time, especially if you love Twinkie little fairies. Yes.
Before, sewing shadows, I mean. Of course, I knew it was your shadow the minute I saw it, and
So I do hope you enjoy this Metaphor ReFantazio review and another quality episode on the Savior Show. Would you expect anything else? Maybe some high quality content, which is what this is, of course. Don't you agree? So luckily I got to see some Metaphor ReFantazio gameplay and try it myself as well with the other extensive early access gameplay that I've done at Tokyo Game Show, which was a very cool event, and I'm just so glad I pushed myself, went for 2 days, the full 2 days of the press event, so I could just cover as much as possible and just play a bunch of new games. So I'm going to go over the gameplay that I've tried before and what I've seen at the Tokyo Game Show to give you like a brief early access review look at this, okay? So what you need to know is basically this is Persona, okay? But it is quite different from Persona. There are quite a lot of different elements that make this game very different and stand out by itself. And honestly, I think it does a lot better, and I'm personally a lot more drawn to this type of game compared to something like Persona, okay? But if you do love those games, you will definitely find, you know, enjoyment here, that's for sure, because they do feel quite similar. I'm much more interested in this high fantasy setting, to be honest, and it's a lot more gripping, if you ask me. And yeah, I just think what they've built here, the world, the lore, the characters, so far from what I've seen is actually very interesting. A brief summary of the story, okay, is basically you've got this kingdom, you know, civil war, fighting with each other, of course. The king gets assassinated, and basically your friend, your childhood friend, is the prince, and it's up to you to basically figure out what the hell is going on. Yes, it's another one of those games, but this is a strong RPG narrative experience, okay? And for massive RPG nerds like me who are into Western RPGs as well, like, you know, good old-fashioned BioWare games when they were good, the Fallout series, and for people who love JRPG games, it's a nice blend of both. So, you know, it really feels like no matter what you enjoy, if you're an RPG lover, you will definitely find something here that you enjoy, because there's a deep social system, just like with the Persona games, as well as, you know, deep combat RPG systems as well, with the turn-based combat and the action-focused combat. And I'm going to talk about the combat because it's very different and pretty interesting, and I think a lot more tactical compared to something like Persona. The childhood relationships really do remind me of like one of my favorite animes of all time, which is Devilman Crybaby, because it just built upon that kind of parasocial kind of relationship bond that you have when you are children, and then of course when you grow up you're going to be different people, but still you have that connection, and I just think it does a good job of that. But it's just much more convincing here, the relationship, and seeing that relationship unfold, you know, from when you were children to where you are now. So yeah, the story here is good, but I'm not going to talk about anything spoiler related. And like I said, this is based on the early access stuff. So I do hope you enjoy this Metaphor ReFantazio review. Let's just get into the positives and negatives right now. The first positive, yes, is of course the amazing cutscenes, okay? I feel like they stepped it up a lot here, but you do need to be aware this is a big positive because of the production quality here. You know, it feels like you're watching a good quality anime at times. But I do also have to say, for people who don't like heavy cutscenes, especially in the beginning of this game, there's going to be a shit ton of cutscenes, okay? So many cutscenes thrown at you. Again, that's just Japanese game design, I guess, and JRPGs, but it did remind me of Final Fantasy 16, where it's very story-focused. Luckily, the story is interesting here, but there is a lot of cutscenes, so if you don't like that and you just want to get into some good quality gameplay, that comes later. So let's talk about the RPG mechanics and why this is actually a great RPG. And as you know, or maybe you don't, if you're not a wise one, which I do encourage you to do, by the way, subscribe right now, become a wise one, just do it, okay?
Yesterday, you said tomorrow, so just do it! Make your dreams come true!
Don't be like the 99% of dum-dums be better, join this community if you love gaming analysis, yearly reviews, looking back at older games, and giving them an up-to-date yearly review, early reviews, or philosophical content where I blend gaming and philosophy together. That's what I try and do on this channel, give it a unique twist. Subscribe, become a wise one. I would be honored to have you join us, and consider supporting this independent show by checking out my music on Spotify or dropping a small donation. That's the only quick shilling I have for you. You're welcome. So yes, this does have a lot of deep RPG systems in it, like Royal Virtue, which is an interesting mechanic. And basically, like, this feels like, I don't know if any of you played Fable back in the day, but Fable 3, it was kind of like a light RPG where you were trying to become the king of Albion, okay? This is kind of similar to a degree. You are trying to kind of take the place of this kingdom, and it's up to you, basically, to form good quality relationships. And this is just what that type of game should have been. This is actually much more realized. I really do like the in-depth kind of RPG decisions that you do have to make, and each location that you go to, not all of them, but a lot of them will have their own opinions around you, and you actually need to form that kind of social bond with the whole, place, not just individual people, which is a very cool and interesting system compared to something like Persona. Of course, you have to worry about what your followers think of you as well, but I just like this grand, system at play here where you have to actually care about what the people think about you as well, and your relationship with them will, determine the outcome of this game. So that's very cool. It does have that similar Persona style of gameplay where you have the social gameplay and then you have separately the combat kind of dungeon crawling gameplay. But how they're intertwined here is much better if you ask me, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But basically you can have up to 14 social bonds, which is, a pretty respectable number, and much better than most role-playing games out there at the moment. The next positive, my wise ones, is the fact that the quality of writing here is good, okay? That's pretty rare to say in modern day gaming. The characters are interesting, well written, the voice acting, when, you do get voice lines and stuff, it is well performed, so I'm pretty happy with that. And this is going for a much more serious tone compared to something like Persona, so that's, going to depend on your preference if you like that or not. But if you are looking for a more serious take on the world that they are inhabiting, then yes, this is a lot more of a serious story, but there is still good quality, goofy, funny moments in this game for Persona fans out there. The only small negative I have to say about kind of world building and stuff is the fact that humans, again, equal bad, okay? All of the fun little fantasy creatures are, of course, the good people, and humans are just an evil, dominating empire. It would have been interesting to have a bit more of a nuanced take. Like with the Persona games, it still is trying to say a lot about, society. We do live in a society, yes, but it's kind of tackling the, same old topics of racism, stuff like that. It would have been nicer if they went a little bit more grander with it, and the idea of, different cultures and stuff, and tackling that. Maybe they do later on. Like I said, this is based on the early access stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the social commentary in this game. Now let's quickly talk about the combat, shall we? Because in the promotional material and stuff like this has been kind of shown to be an action experience. That is not the case. This is still very much a turn-based combat system, so it hasn't reinvented itself, which is good for many people, and maybe others are slightly disappointed because they wanted a fresh spin on it. I personally think they did quite a good balance, but they should have given you more options, okay? So basically how it works is, to initiate combat, it will be real-time combat, okay? And weaker enemies as well, you can take out just in real-time combat. But for bigger enemies, basically, when you stun them, that's when you basically go into the turn-based system that we all know, okay, in Persona games. So it would have been nice if they gave you a choice, I think, but then they would have had to design, basically 2 combat systems. That might have been too difficult. The turn-based combat is far more tactical compared to Persona, I feel, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but just know that the combat is good, and that is the kind of difference between real-time and, the turn-based stuff. And you can still get, bonus damage dealt if you sneak up on an enemy, and that is real-time stuff, so that is cool. But yeah, it is still very much a turn-based RPG. But this time around, you actually get 40 archetypes, and that is where it's very different compared to Persona. And these basically operate as classes, and it's not just you that can use them. Anyone in your party can basically use these different archetypes. So that's a very cool system at play here. And I just have to mention how much more tactical I feel like this is. So basically, when you're fighting a big enemy, you can actually target almost like a Fallout Bats system, for those of you who've never played this type of game before, where you can actually target the different limbs of the enemy and get bonus damage and critical hits and stuff like that. So that's a very cool system. And also, I think this is a new system compared to Persona, where you have a backline and a front line, kind of an attack and a defense, buff and debuff. And it's a little bit more, nuanced than that, but that's kind of just as simply as I can define it. It's quite a cool system, because then you have to think about which character can basically take more damage, which can deal more damage when the stronger attacks are coming in. So it just adds new tactical nature to the gameplay. The turn-based stuff is exactly what we've seen before in Persona, but I just feel like it's more refined and a little bit more difficult, which is good, because yeah, it can be quite easy at times. Also, an important thing to note with the combat is, of course, your social standing with the characters, with your followers, will actually impact the archetype damage and stuff like that. So it's important to keep track of your social bonds. I love that kind of system, having a social system play into the actual gameplay and the combat. That's what we want in an RPG. That's what we need to see more in Western RPGs as well. Okay, so the next positive that we have to talk about is, of course, the art design and the direction of this game. So the menus are usually very cluttered in JRPGs, and it is still very cluttered here, but I have to say the UI design is so much better compared to previous games, okay? It just looks so clean. The art design for some of these menus and the UI is just very nice. Also, it does have that day-night cycle where it splits up the social gameplay and to form relationships and bonds and stuff like that, and then the actual dungeon crawling turn-based combat gameplay. I will say that some of the dungeons do feel overly similar, but it's not that bad, and a lot of them are very unique, of course, and very unique set pieces as well. And a new thing, I think this is a new thing, which I thought was pretty cool, is now when you choose a location, there's actually going to be travel time between that location and where you are. And in that time, then you can actually, choose to have that social interaction, create better bonds and all that kind of stuff. So it just makes it feel much more immersive, and I think that's a cool system. So if I can sum up my final thoughts on this Metaphor ReFantazio review, I would say that this is an overall good game, especially if you are a fan of the Persona series. But for people who are new to this genre, especially JRPGs, I think that this might actually be the perfect point to enter it, because you don't need to play all of the other Persona games to get into this one. And like I said, I feel like it refines a lot of the combat systems. It does have some more action-focused gameplay, and there's a good story here, even though it is a little bit forced down your throat. But overall, the characters are interesting, the writing seems to be good quality. So I honestly think if you're a fan of this type of game, give it a chance. But if you don't like turn-based combat and you aren't a fan of this kind of Japanese-inspired writing and storytelling, then this is of course not going to be for you. So I do hope you enjoyed this Metaphor ReFantazio review, and like I said, please do subscribe if you are new. It would mean a lot to me, as I put a lot of hard work into my videos, and I would just be so grateful if you did join the community. Please let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. That's the whole fun of this, of doing OG YouTube. That's how I want to do it, so please leave me your thoughts and opinions. I love having a discussion with you guys. Any feedback is appreciated. So my final opinion on this game, is Metaphor ReFantazio worth it? Well, yeah, it is. It's pretty good. I just did that for the intro. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Have yourselves a great day. Peace out.